From episode 3, Ida's been rightfully celebrated as a disability pride icon in animated shows representing both physical and mental, visible and invisible, dynamic and static disabilities. Really, they hit the nail on the head with Ida, so let's talk about it. Disabilities are incredibly multifaceted. They can impact you physically, they can be mental, they can hit you emotionally, and it's all connected. They all impact each other. My physical health impacts my mental health, and my mental health impacts my physical health. For Ida specifically, her curse has both physical and mental disability metaphors in there, and mental illness metaphors as well. After all, the Owl Beast is very reactive to loud sounds, perceived threats, and also tends to come out after periods of high stress.
I have a right to be obsessed!
That sounds incredibly familiar to me as somebody with a physical disability and mental illnesses. I would even wager to say that it might be familiar to somebody with a mental disability. Sensory processing disorder, for a personal example, it's not necessarily a disability, it's not categorized as that yet, but it can be quite disabling to me personally, and that is very reactive to loud, sudden sounds and with processing stress. That being said, whether a disability is physical or mental has no impact on whether or not you as an outsider can recognize a disability in another person. Some people are disabled, and until they self-disclose, you might have no clue about it. And that's what invisible versus visible disabilities talks about. Some disabilities are visible, like people with limb differences. Maybe their fingers grew differently, or not at all, or they had an amputation. You can see an aspect of their condition. Other times, disabilities are invisible. I personally have very invisible disabilities in the sense that my body doesn't regulate certain things like my blood pressure. I can hide my experiences most of the time, but even when I'm not feeling well, that's all you can really see. I might just have a cold or a slight headache. You have no idea that I'm disabled just by looking at me. A lot of times, disabilities fall onto a spectrum of invisible and visible, because humans are incredibly diverse species and nothing looks the same between two people. For example, somebody with functional neurological disorder, aka FND, may at some points be able to walk with virtually no visible gait changes, but still be incredible amounts of pain. And then the next moment, maybe they've tired out their body or something went wrong in their brain, and all of a sudden their gait is very, very obviously different. In Ida's case, she has a curse or disability that for the most part is rather invisible. On any given day, thanks to her daily routines, Ida can hide the curse from others through shaving, taking meds, and avoiding spending too much magic, a limit that non-cursed witches, aka able-bodied witches, do not seem to experience. This means that the curse presents as invisible. It's not any less impactful or difficult, but Ida's less likely to be sussed out by it.
Where did it go? Hey, lady, have you seen a monster that kind of looks like you? Lady!
But when that owl beast rears its furry little head, well, it is very visibly disabled. And this is one of the things I love about disability representation with Ida Clawthorne, because she masks her symptoms.
Your gem, it's still dark.
No, it's not. You're nuts!
Masking is the art of hiding one's true experience by presenting an alternative. Everybody does it to some extent. But disabled people, neurodivergent people, and just generally people who fall outside of stereotypical norms do it far more often and potentially to a self-harmful rate. I've done it to the point where I didn't get help when I needed to because I was trying not to be a burden for others.
There's nothing for you to worry about. It's all under control.
That's not the only reason why somebody might mask. Sometimes people do it just so that they can pretend to be normal. Sometimes people do it so that they're not asked a bunch of questions about their disability. Sometimes in order to fit in a certain social situation like church or school, you're expected to mask. In neurodivergent contexts, this could look like following social norms of small talk, eye contact, and limited fidgeting. In disability contexts, masking can look like pretending to be in less pain than you actually are, or covering up fatigue and brain fog with scripts, or rewording your weekend to sound a little bit better than, yeah, I only left my room to pee because I was in so much pain. Disabilities aren't always the same though. Like with Ida's owl beast, sometimes she can get around and other times that owl beast rears its head and it's very visible. That's what's a dynamic disability, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Static disability means the nature of your condition doesn't change that much, or the nature of your support needs don't change a lot. Someone with a missing limb, for example, isn't about to regrow their limb.
Oh yeah, sorry. Side effect of the curse. It's actually fun once in a while.
last I checked. Other examples of static disabilities might be a condition that's really well managed to just stay about the same the whole time. So your only support needs are maintaining that regimen plan. Over a long period of time, that static disability may worsen or improve, but from day to day, you're about doing the same level of maintenance and you're disabled about the same amount every single day. Eda has a dynamic disability. Sometimes there is no denying that she is the most powerful witch on the Boiling Isles, and other times, it's hard to tell if that's Eda or not. And man, if that's not the most relatable factor of her disability representation. The difference between visible and invisible disabilities and static and dynamic disabilities is that invisible and visible disabilities are based on your perception of the disability, whereas static and dynamic are based on your experience of the disability. When you have a dynamic disability, sometimes your support needs are higher and sometimes they're lower. And when they're lower, it may appear that you have an invisible disability, but that's not the case all the time. With Eda, though, that is pretty much the case. As the curse manifests more completely between the Season 1 ending and Season 2 beginning, her disability changes, which is very relatable and happens a lot more than you might think with disability. Disabilities can change, access needs can change, your perspective on things might change. To put the events of Season 1 into disability words, I would say that she experienced a major flare-up and underwent acute emergency treatment called Sharing is Caring, which led to her surviving the flare-up. However, it left her more disabled than before. Whereas before she was able to cast magic and it just gave her a flare-up, that's it. Now she is unable to cast magic at all. And something that I find really relatable, once again, I feel like I'm saying that about every single factor of this, but Eda is just very relatable, is when her disability changes, we don't see her, you know, rationing her magic, whatever little is left, you know, she has little sparks of it left right after the transformation, but not a lot. She doesn't ration it. She's trying to find the end of her powers, and in doing so, completely wipes her out of any trace of magic. And I just find that so relatable, because when I have something change, I'm like, I need to figure out what I can do and whether or not I can do this. And if this is a flare-up, where exactly do I start getting flared up, instead of just, you know, wow, I don't want that to happen. Let's do normal things.
It's my power, kid. And before you showed up, I spent my whole life wasting it.
When Eda becomes Harpy Eda, her disability shifts yet again. The Owl Beast embodies her disability. In this case, the Harpy isn't so much a representation of her disability itself as much as it is a representation or metaphor for the experience of being disabled. She learns to embrace her Owl Beast for the first time, and as a result isn't fighting her disability anymore. Instead, they're able to work together and around each other a little more. And that is something that actually was brought up for me in therapy a couple of years ago, is imagining my disability as an entity in and of itself. Can I have compassion for the me that is completely disabled? And I think being able to think about disability as if it is its own entity is a really interesting way of going about supporting yourself, because the Owl Beast has its own needs and reactions that are separate from Eda. Examples of that are like it going to go eat voles. She obviously doesn't want to eat the voles.
Well, I got into Harpy mode and now I can't get out.
She also ate like 9 voles on the way home.
Hey, I had to keep up my end of the bargain.
And she probably didn't want to scratch her dad based on her reactions and guilt following the event. But the moment that Eda just acknowledges and talks with the Owl Beast and works out an agreement between the two of them.
Listen, neither of us want to be here, but we are, and there's no changing that. If we can't accept each other, this nightmare will never end. So what do you say? Truce? For now?
They're able to form the agreement and be a heart, much like a disability has different reactions and needs that you don't necessarily have yourself, but you need to take care of. And I don't know about you, but for some reason it's easier for me to want to take care of somebody else than it is to take care of myself. I'm working on that. I still take care of myself, but sometimes I can use that to my advantage and be like, okay, well, let me take care of this Owl Beast of my own. I haven't done that in a while. Maybe I should try that again. Now the ball turns to be in your court. What did you think of Eda's disability arc? Did you feel like it was realistic if you have a disability? If you don't have a disability, what did you learn about disability from Eda's arc? Leave me a comment down below with your thoughts, and if you feel like I did this topic justice, give me a like, please. It gives me satisfaction and personal affirmation that I'm doing something. No matter what kind of day you're having, I hope it is somewhat better, and I love you. Have a great day. Bye.
No one likes having a curse, but yeah, if you take the right steps, it's manageable.
She's doing her best now.